Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on KPI development and dashboarding. I'm David Wilsey. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Balanced Scorecard Institute. Today, I'd like to welcome Don May. He's the Global Account Executive for Spider Strategies. Welcome, Don.
Thanks, David. How's everyone today?
Very good. All right, so we're going to split this into two presentations and then answer questions at the end. The first half will be on developing KPIs, the process for understanding how we're performing, and then Don will show you a demonstration of how to visualize that performance information in a dashboarding system. Again, I'm David Wilsey. I've been doing balanced scorecard or KPI development or dashboarding work related to that, like strategy, for a good 20 years now. I actually have a weird background. I started in music education, determined I didn't want to be a music teacher after all at some point, and then moved into the management world. Since graduate school back in 2004 and 5, I've been helping balance clients with the Balanced Scorecard Institute articulate strategy, measure performance, and create a system to make sure we're getting better at this sort of thing. Don, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Don May. I am the global account exec for Spider Strategies, handling software implementation for organizations all around the world. I'm located right outside Boston, Massachusetts. I had a more traditional sort of career arc all the way in IT for Microsoft and now for Spider. So happy to be here to answer any questions I can for anybody.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so again, the topic for today is KPI development and dashboarding. Let's see if we can take the information that we have. We're all inundated with performance information. There's data everywhere we look. Is there somehow we can take that information and that data and turn it into something meaningful that tells us about whether we're accomplishing something as an organization or not? Okay, so I'll talk through the step-by-step approach to defining effective KPIs. We'll talk about the how to create more useful and user-friendly dashboards, maybe some real-world examples. Don will talk you through a real-world example of what it would look like on an actual dashboard, and how to streamline your report. Okay. Before we get started, let's do a quick poll. What is your biggest challenge with this? What do you find difficult about this? We saw a lot of questions come in beforehand, and it seemed like a lot of them were on option A, defining and choosing KPIs. As a matter of fact, we get a lot of phone calls in the office from people saying, I'm really, really wrestling with performance measurement and dashboarding. And when we dig into it, what we really find a lot of times is trying to articulate what you're trying to accomplish. So maybe that first category would that first category might be where you're thinking. I'm going to launch a poll. You tell me, for you all, what is the area that you're finding the biggest challenge? I bet at the Spider Impact or Spider Strategies office, they get phone calls asking about visualization and dashboarding design. So it's probably just depends on where you're sitting when you receive those phone calls.
Exactly.
All right, it looks like we're up to about 70% of the participants have answered the question. And there is a mix of interests in the room, as expected. I'll give you about another 10 seconds. So if you're mulling over your answer, please jump in. Okay, so here's the results. So we had 49% said that defining and choosing KPIs is the challenge that you're facing, the challenge that you have the most difficulty with. Data collection and management was 30%, and data visualization and dashboard design is 19%. So there is a mix, and then there just a couple of you said interpretation of data. So once we get it visualized, we can usually if we're visualizing it effectively, maybe interpretation isn't so much of a challenge. Okay, very interesting. Okay, so anybody then that is wrestling with defining and choosing KPIs. Let's talk about that a little bit. Yeah, first of all, what do we mean by a dashboard? Just the basics. We're talking about some sort of a visual tool that tells you what our performance information is telling us. We have all this data. Oftentimes it's almost not useful to have a dense spreadsheet of numbers. What I want is to see a pattern. We have all these tools at our disposal. Can we see the performance information in a meaningful way that helps communicate what we're trying to accomplish to the right people, and also tells us whether we're making progress or not. It's as simple as that. It should be real-time access too, right? We want to be able to do everything on our phone these days. If I can't pull up my phone when I'm standing in line in Starbucks and see how we're performing, then it's not as effective as it could as everything else in my life, right? If I can, see my Facebook page, I want to also be able to see how we're performing. I like to compare it, in a metaphorical sense to a similar activity as a GPS. When you send somebody a map drop, but what you're essentially saying is, here's where we're going. I'll meet you there. Uh, Leadership a lot of times is about that, saying I have a vision for the future. We as a team have a collective vision for what our destination is. We want to, this is what good looks like. This is what bad would look like. Let's visualize that on a dashboard, so that employees all understand and can make independent decisions about how about their performance and about their activities in a way that drives us to that destination. Okay, it provides navigation and orientation. So if I am implementing an initiative and it's not making progress, it should help me reorient my focus. Interactivity, customization, this is only useful if people can translate the language into their own language, that make it focused on the types of business that they are focused on. It needs to be interactive so that I can again bring it up on my phone and make changes on the fly. And then it should enable storytelling. A lot of times, strategy is about going from point A to point B. Classic story structure. I'm trying to accomplish something. There are obstacles in my way, and I need to overcome those obstacles. Basic storytelling. And a dashboard enables the visualization of that storytelling. Here is where we're headed. This is what good looks like. This is what bad looks like. Let's implement the right actions in order to make that happen. I often like to point out the fact that this is a visual exercise. Traditionally, strategic plans are written in a narrative form, and that's useful. Someone puts a lot of thought into that narrative. But if you can paint a picture, it's far more effective. It communicates far more effectively. So many people are visual learners that if you can paint a picture like a strategy map that says, wow, contract management is driving these two objectives in our process perspective, which in turn are driving some of these outcomes we're trying to achieve at the top. Um, it's much easier to comprehend and implement than a long narrative that describes what our strategy actually is how it's supposed to actually work. Okay, so I'm aiming for a picture like this. Not only does this picture explain my strategy, but it also, because through the color coding, it tells me how we're performing, because there are performance measures tied to each of these objectives, that's what these ovals are. And it tells me that, wow, financially, we're currently not hitting our mark. We've got happy customers, but for some reason that's not translating into revenue. We've got some mediocre performance in these middle two rows, but contract management is a problem. So anyway, so the visual element of adding color coding to our pictures really does drive a better understanding of how things are going. We're ultimately trying to answer certain strategy management questions, like, what is our mission and vision for success? What is our plan? I'm trying to communicate this with my employees. What is the plan for accomplishing the vision that we've set out? How do I align our operating goals, all the activities that are happening, all the work that people are doing? How do I make sure I create alignment between that work and what we're trying to accomplish? And then how do teams and individuals make their own decisions about what they need to prioritize and how do they get things done? So I'm ultimately trying to connect dots with this dashboarding system. I'm trying to enable people to understand how all these elements connect with each other. So the system should address a lot of challenges. One is strategy execution failure. One one strategy expert after another keeps telling us about how strategy execution is not happening. The academic world is full of reports telling us that we all are very good at planning. We're not necessarily very good at making it happen. And so having a dashboarding system can enable that strategy execution. It's a key component of making things happen. It's a key component of holding people accountable. And by holding people accountable, I don't mean punishing them. I don't mean, laying off the people who don't hit their targets. What I mean is making sure that somebody is putting their name next to the strategy that we're trying to accomplish and telling us whether we're making progress or not. Um, Ad hoc decision making should be something that is we can do away with if we can provide information and put information in the hands of leadership, so they can make more informed decisions based on our current actual performance. Budgeting should not be completely disconnected from strategy the way it is with a lot of organizations. It would be great if budgeting decisions are made based on whatever our strategic intent is, and we're putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and we're investing in the strategic direction of the organization. Continuous improvement should be something that is driven by performance information, having a dashboard, having data at your fingertips that's live, that is informing us whether the decision the actions I took yesterday are making an impact or not. That's really valuable. And then intangible uncertainty. There were a lot of questions in the pre-session registration about the intangibles of knowledge, of the knowledge based work life. We don't live in a world anymore where we're just producing widgets. Henry Ford is creating cars. We count productivity. We now live in a world where most of what we do is more intangible. And so there's a lot of uncertainty in a world where we're producing code, and we're producing branding, and we're producing things that are less tangible. And so you need to have a process for thinking through what success looks like and being able to create maybe proxy measures to help better understand and reduce the uncertainty around that intangible nature of our work today. Here's what a dashboard might look like if you were to look at this at the strategy level. I mean, a lot of what we're talking about could be at the operational level, but this is a strategic plan that has been broken down into a single page. This is on a dashboard, so this is live. This is for a city government. They've got 4 strategic themes that they're focusing on, each with a defined result. You've got a mission vision at the top. And on the left side of the screen, you see their objectives. And for each objective, they've got measures, targets, and initiatives. The objectives are color coded live based on our performance, based on the underlying measures related to each objective. So again, essentially, instead of having a 25-page strategic plan, I have one picture that I can share with my entire organization that tells me that, hey, we're trying to utilize technology better so that we can create efficiencies and effectiveness, so that we can ultimately improve service delivery, and we had to drive performance outcomes or program outcomes. This is the strategy that this city chose to articulate to its employees. And so over time, as they're implementing the initiatives on the far right of the screen, uh, they should see an improvement on performance on the objectives, which are being measured here. Okay, and the point is that it's not perfect. The point is that every quarter we have a meeting where we get the right people in a room and we talk about, are the initiatives we're implementing making a difference or not? And why not? Why are we getting the results that we are getting. So essentially, the top part of the screen is communicating to our employees, to our city in this case, what our mission, vision, and strategy is. The left side of the screen communicates how the nuts and bolts of our strategy work together. The middle part of our screen is showing you what we're measuring and what our targets are, our current targets. And then the right side of the screen shows you the initiatives that we're implementing, the projects and the programs we're implementing right now to try to move the needle. The point is that this is one picture that captures the entire strategy. Okay, and the idea is that we're using performance measures to inform our decision making. Now, one clarification, a lot of times people will send me their quote unquote KPIs or their performance measures. And when I look at them, I actually find a list of initiatives. We're going to implement this, we're going to implement that, by the end of the quarter. And I think, well, because we're going to do it by the end of the quarter, we're going to think of that as a measure of success. And that might be important, but what we really want with our measures is something we can trend over time, like this. Something that we're counting, something quantifiable, number of safety accidents, like the slide says, or the percentage of something. Okay, so we're not talking about initiatives. Did we or did we not redesign the website? That's valuable, and it just goes in a different place in the system. And then the other important basic concept is that we do have targets that define the level of performance we're aiming for, and we use thresholds, the color coding I already mentioned, that should help you understand what you're looking at, whether this is underperformance, or are we hitting our target? Are we in danger? Cautionary medium level performance. So everything in the system could be color coded based on these thresholds. It's a really important way of communicating what the desired level of performance is on any given objective. As I said earlier, we think of everything as a process. Okay, so we have the measure, perform, review, adapt framework that we use for designing performance measures, all within the context of our 9-step methodology for strategic planning. Again, everything has a process for us. And it's a very simple process. It's almost, like I said earlier, it almost always starts with strategy. Well, it's not what are we going to count? What should we be measuring? The question is, what are we trying to accomplish? And it's always surprising to me how often that really is the key question. Can I get the leadership team to develop some consensus around what success would look like within the context of your individual strategy? So what are the objectives? What are the intended results of your strategy? And then from there, we understand various potential measures, alternative measures. We have lots of disciplined processes, tools to use to generate potential measures. And then we have a very disciplined process for scoring the measures to determine which one is the most important to start tracking. And then we define and document everything. And then we move into a performance review process that a cycle that you're going to come back to on a regular basis, because this development process is just the beginning. You set a target, you start implementing initiatives, you collect performance, you review it, determine whether you're making a difference or not, and then you share that. And this happens on a regular basis. And so just getting started isn't the whole story. Really, the work happens here, making sure that on a regular basis, you have a disciplined process for reviewing performance and getting better. Okay, when we work with organizations, we come back over here and we start by launching the program. I won't go into detail there, but just all those things that you have to do at the beginning to really get this started. You want to make sure you started on the right foot. Anyway, so that's the process. Again, if you want to know more about this, our training classes go into great detail on every single one of these steps to help organizations with each of the steps to implement a disciplined process. What you're aiming for that in most organizations is a family of measures that all help you understand performance, because very rarely is there one measure that's telling you everything you want to know, right? It's just not the nature of business or any kind of organizational performance. you have operational elements, and then you have strategic outcomes you're trying to achieve. And so maybe the key to our strategy is on the input side. We have to have the right towers, the right network. You know, this is a mobile telephone company example that Don is going to go into great detail on. Maybe the key to our strategy is having the right kind of devices. Maybe the key to our strategy is the marketing and training that we're doing. That's what's going to drive our success. Maybe the key to our success has to do with some process that we're implementing about the way we interact with customers or the consistency of delivery of something. Maybe it has to do with good old-fashioned output, whatever we're producing. We're producing more sales, we're producing more contracts. And so it's really useful to break that down into steps so I can see how everything is connecting. Ultimately, though, there are probably strategic outcomes having to do with happy customers or profits or so, you know, depending on what your business is, your organization and is, you have outcomes you're ultimately trying to achieve. And so this system is designed to help you connect the dots between these various elements. And then I'm implementing new initiatives every day. We have a new branding initiative or campaign or something like that that we're launching. It's designed to produce certain outcomes. I want to track that. Maybe we have some employee engagement scores, employee training scores, certain behaviors I want to track. Maybe there's risk elements. Cybersecurity is always a problem for an organization like this. What are some risk measures that they might have in place to protect themselves or to alert key people when if there's a problem? And again, the point of a dashboarding system is to keep all of these moving pieces at your fingertips. Make sure that they're easy to get to, and the user can see how the dots connect between the branding campaign and some output that we're trying to produce, and the happy customers that we're ultimately trying to influence. What I'm always trying to encourage is I want employees to connect the dots between the leading indicators, the actions that you're taking, the work that we're doing, and the lagging indicators that are indicative of success at an outcome level. And I know some people think this is intuitive. I have found that it's not. You might have leaders that are really good at this without having to spell it out for them. But I want my employees to all see how the number of programs we're holding is designed to drive this kind of outcome. We're holding smoking cessation programs, and it's designed to reduce the population that smokes. And I should also, as an employee, understand how that is ultimately driving cancer rates. Okay, I want all employees to be able to articulate this for me. And so they should see that when they're looking at their dashboard. It should not be something they have to guess at, or it shouldn't be just sort of an unspoken thing behind the scenes. It should be very literal, very in your face, something we talk about in our performance review meeting about whether we're making this chain of results happen or not. I'm also trying to help employees transition from data collection to information to intelligence. And this is what I mean by this. We had 1,368 ad clicks last month. That's what we think of as data. And frankly, data is by itself is just not very useful. Is that good, bad? I don't know. Well, what if I told you we had that number of clicks relative to a target of 1,500 and a red flag of 1,400? And I can visualize it like this. And I see that not only are we underperforming, but we're trending down. Okay, now I've got a story. It's not just raw data. It's actually it's information. I could also take that one step further and say, we've got a strategy that depends on those web ads generating clicks, and it converts that, which convert into sales. And I've got an objective around marketing impact, and this is the measure that we're using. We trended down for a while. We implemented a new initiative. We had people looking at this and redesigning some things. We did that in January, and by the way, as that initiative rolled out, it did in fact make a difference. So now I'm connecting dots between the initiatives I'm working on and the impact we're ultimately trying to achieve. And I can visualize it on a screen just like this. So that's what we're aiming for. And ultimately, if I do this well, I am enabling strategic leadership. I want my leadership team to be thinking about strategy and communicating strategy in a visual manner so that it's not just in their head. It's something that employees can make happen because they can see what you're trying to communicate. So the dashboard should be aligned with strategic goals. It should be enable collaboration because frankly, it doesn't matter if the leader gets it. What really matters is if the employees get it. And the only way they're going to get it is if you're collaborating and talking and trying things and being able to you know uh, develop a shared understanding of what we're trying to accomplish and where we're what we're actually accomplishing now. Where do we currently stand? Continuous improvement, real-time feedback, metric adjustments, all of that enables us to make incremental improvements on a day-to-day basis. And then again, I'm enabling people to make the right decisions, drive the right actions in order to make better decisions and make things happen, create outcomes, not just report data. Okay, I'm not just reporting things just for the sake of counting it because somebody told me, but I understand what we're ultimately trying to accomplish. All right, so I'm going to pass things off to Don. First, before I do that, I just want to mention again, if you want to know more about KPI development, uh, feel free to visit our one of these two websites where we talk about either our balanced scorecard program or our KPI professional program. We do teach all these classes online, as you can see from the screenshots, or we're back in person if you want to go to Washington D.C. or Atlanta or one of the other locations that we offer the programs for. All right, Don, you want to show us what this would look like in real life?
I would. Could I just ask you
Oh,
to stop
sure, Don. I
sharing?
need to stop sharing, huh? All right, it's all yours.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
All right.
Is it
Yes,
not?
yes, I
Okay.
can. Sorry, my windows were moved up.
No worries. Okay. So before we get into the story around mobile world and how we utilize dashboards to sort of tell the story around the data, right, and allowed mobile world to make decisions, I want to just back up one quick step just to kind of show you how the data gets into the system because we talked in the poll about how data collection was one of the key interests for people on the call. So what we're looking at here is that we have mobile world example. You see that mobile world utilizes a balanced scorecard with the traditional 4 perspectives. We've got some objectives and then we have some KPIs underneath. And so what happens is that this underpins all of the dashboards that you're going to see me show throughout the presentation, which is where the data is coming from. But how does that data get into the system is a great question, right? And so the first thing when you're utilizing a software like ours, and this is Spider Impact, Spider Impact is one of the world's leading strategy management platforms. It'll allow you to not only track your strategy, but also utilize these dashboards so that you can make decisions in real time in order to make sure that your organization is heading in the right direction. And so what you see here on the left side of the screen in the navigation pane is our hierarchy, right? And so when we're talking about data collection, we want to make sure that the data is coming from the right place. You can see here that this mobile world example has lots of different what we call organizations. And so from finance to marketing to sales, they all have specific metrics or objectives or initiatives that are going to be key in sort of telling the story of our performance. And so within Spider Impact, you're allowed to create as many of these organizations as you need to in order to make sure that you can derive the right story from your data. And so if we take a look at the mobile world example, you can see here that we have this objective for increased revenue. We've got device sales revenue as an actual KPI metric. And to David's point, you can see here that this metric itself has a goal of 465,000 and then what we call a red intervention level of around 450,000. And then when you see the actual performance come in of 437, you get an idea of what the score would be like and what the change from the prior period is. Because what happens is that the system takes those two thresholds and creates a normalized score of 0 through 10 based on those numbers. And then when your actual performance comes in, that's where it lands in terms of the score level, which generates the color scheme, right? And so here we're looking at the traditional red, amber, green. But within the platform itself, you can adjust that if you'd like, if you wanted to have it be red to purple or blue to pink or whatever it is, whatever you want to have to showcase the performance for your organization, it's there. And so how does this data get into the system? So there's a couple of ways. The first is simply that someone could manually update it, right? And so they have the ability to come in here and put this data in as a measure value. They could just type that value and enter it into the system or choose from a drop down or something like that. The second way is that you've got all these sort of disparate systems where all of this data lives. And so you've got to find an easy way to bring it into a system. And so that's where Spider Impact would let you import from Excel spreadsheets or connect to Google Sheets, connect to databases or to third-party software through REST API. So that way you've got all this information out there in all these different places. But if you can create that scorecard or a data set, which I'll show you in a second, and bring that data in, now it's in a centralized location where you can utilize it for some of these dashboards that you need to create. The other way that the data can come in is through data sets. Again, you're connecting to a third-party system or an Excel spreadsheet, and you're just bringing in things like transaction records, student records, demographic records, right? You're bringing them into the system, and then you're going to be able to utilize them for either KPIs or dashboards. The initiatives that David talked about. So we want to have that ad clicks initiative. How are we running it? Where is that information coming from? So we're actually running that right within Spider Impact. We're creating tasks like refine ad headline, refine target audience. We've assigned it to a specific user. They're adding updates. That information is coming into the system. And then that's what's going to allow us to relate it specifically to the ad clicks KPI. So we can sort of generate that information, which you saw where we started running the initiative and then the actual KPI metric started to increase. And then lastly is through forms, right? And so forms will allow you to send these web forms that you can create within Spider Impact to people via links or embedded on third-party sites. And when they fill out this information, it comes into the system and then you can utilize it for KPI data or dashboards. So I just wanted to give you sort of an idea of where the data is coming from before we get into the story, because we want to make sure that you're understanding that it's not just that you can have these disparate systems. You can be collecting it through Excel or through manual entry, but you can have it in one centralized location and then turn it into the dashboards that I'm going to show you right now. So Mobile World is a global telecom organization. It's our fake demo environment. They do business all around the world. And so every single month, they're going to have a meeting where they discuss their strategic objectives. And within Spider Impact, we're going to put it all together and just present live from the software. So here we're doing a meeting for February of 2025 for the month. And this level is the executives. So we're going to start at the executive level, kind of see what they would care about, go through a couple of dashboards, take it down into a department level, and then we'll even hit a team and individual scorecard as well. So 4 simple dashboarding rules that we've seen throughout our time helping organizations implement the software is that you want to tailor the content to the specific audience, right? You want to make sure that the information that they see is what they want to see. You want to ensure that each dashboard has a purpose. You want to choose the right visualizations for it, and then if possible, sort of make them interactive to get people to be able to tell the story in a meaningful and impactful way. So let's start here, where Mobile World is having this meeting. They sit down and they can just simply see their strategy map. They have a quick idea of how the organization is performing holistically, utilizing these bubbles that showcase the performance. Again, that's tied directly to that balanced scorecard that I showed you when I started this. So they can quickly look and see that sales overhead costs is red and trending down, right? Or marketing output is red and trending down. They can give some great feedback on market awareness, green and trending up, right? You can dive into each of these and go into the scorecard to see exactly what's happening, what's going on with the sales and general admin costs, things like that. So these dashboards are now interactive in the sense that not only do I get a quick picture of what the performance looks like, but I also can do that based upon time period. So if we were decided, hey, you know what, we actually want to have this as a quarterly meeting. Well, now we're looking at the quarterly numbers and they're a little different, right? Based upon the quarterly performance. So these interactive dashboards help tremendously in terms of telling the story for a particular time period, but also allowing you to move through different time periods as well. But let's say we want to add more context to that. So the slide that David showed earlier, now it's a live dashboard within the system. So you can see that the KPI is driving it, device sales revenue. We have specific targets here. the initiatives that are running, and now that strategy map again exists. And so again, this is a live dashboard where these are hyperlinks where I can click and go directly to that specific initiative to see exactly what's happening with it within the system. So again, like I said, Mobile World does business all over the globe. They want to have a good idea of, where are their 5G towers or where are their cell stations at, right? Things like this give them an idea of where things are for them. These dashboards are really important to the leaders because maybe they don't have an idea visually about where certain things are. And a dashboard like this could show them exactly, where they're located and what they have to do. And maybe are there some spots where we might want to add some more specific to like South America, right? At the same time, maybe they want to see how their data is being processed. And so a dashboard like this could show, what that looks like from a research and development standpoint. Where are their 5G towers or how many 5G towers they have. It's not just a pretty picture. Again, it's a live dashboard that's utilizing the performance it sees from maybe the time period beneath it, right? And so you can see that the information is changing as I change the months. Maybe so this particular meeting, they wanted to hone in on sales. So sales is what they're seeing. You can see revenue, cost, operating expenses, all different parts of the business, all put onto the same page. So at a glance, they have quick access to it. They can see things like their pipeline, right? What's happening from a marketing perspective with ad clicks down to new customers, and how is that translating, what that performance looks like. Okay, so now we have a decision to make here where ad clicks are good, leads are good, but new trials are lacking. So that information allows us to go and make some decisions about what we do in between the lead to the new trial phase. Maybe we try some different processes. Apologies. So here we have sales breakdown, right? We can see what's happening with the previous quarters, what sales look like for this quarter, how our close ratio is trending down, things like that, right? Just really easy slides for someone to look at and get an idea of what the business looks like. You could break it down into things like by state, right? So, hey, what are we doing from a specific postal code within New York City, right? Where is that business coming from? If we go back to the bigger map, we can see that this is green and that our business is really being generated from places like Texas, Illinois, California. What are we doing there? What's happening, in the middle of the country that's really driving this? Maybe it's an issue with, marketing, for instance. So if we go back to look at specific data, now we have this data set driven dashboard that can show us exactly what's happening from a device sales perspective by employee. And so we saw that Middle America was kind of lacking. We can look at our employees and sort of see, where they're at. And we can separate that by maybe looking at specific to retail employees and what is each employee doing in a particular part of the globe, right? So getting this information into the system is great, but being able to utilize a dashboard like this to see exactly what someone is doing will really help you sort of narrow down the type of decisions you need to make and the actions that you need to take around it. So we saw that the middle of America wasn't doing too well. And so maybe that's a function of marketing, right? And so here we are in the marketing department. They have their own dashboards. We saw the ad clicks. We saw how we ran an initiative and the ad clicks were coming down. We ran it. It started going back up. Right on this dashboard, we can see some of the notes that existed around performing that initiative and the ability to sort of have communication around that initiative as well. So we can have notes right here on the dashboard to have conversations so people can know exactly what's going on. So there's just a lot of different functionality when you have these different dashboards. We can see what our social media presence looks like. How are we doing from Facebook likes or article mentions? We can see that they're really, really low here. So I want to take it down one more quick level and take a look at a team for customer support. So what are we doing in Mobile World to help our customers, and how are we handling the employees who do that, right? And so if we look at the customer support team, we're always trying to improve our call center. What's happening here? What steps are we taking? How are we performing for those particular steps? And this gives us some indication of that with those dashboards. We move to see how are the calls flowing through the organization, right? The incoming calls through the center. We have the idea about how many calls are getting answered, what's going to tier 2, right? We can make decisions. We can look and see first call resolution is yellow, average time to answer is great, but our average time to resolve is red. And so that would allow us to even click here, see what's going on from a trend perspective, and then maybe even start an initiative to improve our call handling capabilities, right? So all of that can be done just by looking at the simple dashboard and seeing the sort of outlier from a performance standpoint. How are we treating the employees within that customer support department? So these are the people on the front lines for our customers. We want to make sure they're being treated well. Well, look, we've got that. We've got great employee satisfaction. So we know we're doing the right things when it comes to our employees. And we're hoping that translates for them when they treat our customers, when they get them on the phone. We've got key performance results, or we could even see how we're doing as a specific team, right? And so the customer support team overall versus the two leaders who run the two different groups, Mike and Mary. So we have Mike's team performance, Mary's team performance. We have the ability to go in and see the scorecard data that's being translated over here to this report right here on this dashboard. We can dive deep into Mike's team and see specifically, how each of his employees are performing between Kathy, Carly, and Kyle. We can compare them to one another right here live on the screen. And then we even have the ability to dive deep into Kyle's performance, see where he's downward trending, upward trending, what's red for him. Does he have any initiatives that he needs to run? What does his specific call flow look like? And then you have the ability to drill down into things like that. So from the perspective of utilizing the dashboards to make decisions, you can see that you can get all this data, you can have all of these different things at the same time, so that you get a really good glimpse holistically of whether it's a department, a team, or the organization, and then you can very easily make better decisions because you have access to the data and basically in real time. David, that's it for me.
Very good. All right. I got a question for you before we open up the floor for questions. Can you show everybody how to make a strategy map? My favorite feature in Spider Impact is, we've had people for 20 years take our training class. They're building strategy maps. They're moving things around in the PowerPoint. They're trying to copy images and create one of those on scratch from scratch. Just one 10-second version if you know what I'm asking.
Yep, absolutely. So when it comes to the strategy map, Spider Impact has a great feature that what it will do is it will read the scorecard that you've entered. It will pick up any perspectives and objectives that are within that scorecard, and in one click, you can generate a strategy map. And so now you can see here, it's got all the different perspectives, those four, it's got the objectives that are there. And then from there, I can start to edit this, right? I can maybe change the shape if I want to. So if I don't want them to be the ovals, I can turn them into one of these different shapes. I can add arrows to show connectivity, right? I can add specific images or text lines if I want to have my mission and vision also show up on the strategy map like you see in this version up here, right? So you can see how quickly that was generated. And the best part is, that only took 2 seconds, but it'll read the performance of the actual scorecard underneath.
Fantastic. All right, so we're done with our presentation. We have about 15 minutes. If anybody has any questions, we had a lot of questions come in beforehand, so we can go ahead and get started on those. But if you're still mulling over your questions, please open the Q&A box, and Don will put up the next steps thing if you're interested in learning more about the training programs or learning more about the software itself. While those are coming in, one question, the first one that came in is, hold on, let me bring it up. Can you include KPIs for field technicians that are tasked with delivery of required tobacco volume to meet customer orders? I love it. Very, very, very detailed. We're jumping right in the weeds. Tobacco. I don't believe I've ever had a tobacco question on one of my webinars. It sounds to me like tobacco at a required volume is already a measure and a target. But what I'd like to do is talk to you through the coaching process, or coach you through the process, the thinking process, because everybody on the line has their own business. So what we would do if we were working with you as a tobacco organization is we would talk through what your objectives are. What is your strategy? What is your high level strategy for approaching the market? And then can we connect this tobacco volume focus to some higher level content? What is the context for that? Why do we care? Can I map out the critical contributing factors to success? What is it? And then, there's probably something about that activity that's really important to whether or not you're successful or not. It has to do with the speed of the delivery, the volume. You're already measuring the volume, it looks like. Is there a cost factor that you're really focused on, or is there a quality? Maybe the delivery process creates quality problems. So the point is, you get a team together and they talk through what is the measure of success? What does success look like for us within the context of our strategy? Determine what you want to measure, and then start using the dashboard to trend that out. Okay, a couple of questions about knowledge-driven work. Departments, often outcomes are intangible, variable. How does within the knowledge-based environment, how do you know how to measure, define impactful measures? I would recommend a book. There's Slow Productivity, Cal Newport, I think his name. Anyway, it's a good book, talks about measuring productivity. The whole first section is, for somebody like me, is very depressing because it talks about how difficult it is to to measure success in the knowledge-based work life. I would argue that just because it's difficult doesn't mean that we don't measure. It just, what it means is you have to um, realize that it's a process, realize that um, you have to be creative around theorizing what success looks like and what drives success. Define the outcomes of what you're trying to achieve and measure those outcomes. I think he talks about that quite a bit in the books. Sometimes it means slowing down and not worry about, that's the one of the themes of his book is slow down, give people some space, let them be creative. Sometimes being creative means going off and not doing anything for a little while. That's okay. So what you got to do is make sure you, as a team, like I said on the tobacco question, figure out what success looks like, create a consensus on your team. What is it that drives that success? And then try to create measurements around that.
David, can I pop in real quick
Sure,
on?
please.
And in a system like this, right, you have this capability where you can utilize custom scoring. And so maybe if you have something that's more subjective, right, and knowledge based, it's not going to have a direct number per se, but you can still link it to text, right? And so here, maybe we have exceeds expectations, below expectations, or a high performer, or whatever the actual thresholds that you've created around that specific knowledge KPI, you can still track it in a system like this and then turn it into a dashboard where you can see, results that maybe aren't numbers based.
Right. Looking at the questions, and I hate to put you on the spot, Don, but I see a question about Tableau and business intelligence systems. How does Spider Impact compare with those kinds of systems?
Well, what I would say is that our software is tied specifically to strategic performance. So, with the Tableaus and some of the Power BIs of the world, they're going to be able to do some of this dashboarding and you're going to be able to get some of the data set data. But the fact that I can align all that information directly to my strategy map is really nice. And so if I come back up here where I can say, okay, I'm looking at the strategy map and around revenue, and I can click on that, I can see the scorecard. And then this specific metric is being driven by the data set data that's coming in that can then allow me to go to that interactive dashboard where I was able to separate by country or by employee, right? It's like it all comes together in one picture as opposed to needing a Tableau here and then a strategy management software over here. Spider Impact allows you to kind of do all of it in one shot.
Right. We work with a lot of clients that try to use other systems, and those systems are great, but you really have to know what you're doing to make those work. And this one, you just turn it on and enter your data, and it's a solution. That's the difference, I think.
Yeah, and it's pretty simplistic, right? If I were to go to make a dashboard, I could simply just start adding speedos or text or shapes or images. I don't have to know how to code. I don't have to know all these specific pieces of information around the actual software. It's all right here for me to add and then turn into, a dashboard like the pipeline or something like that.
Mhm. Okay. See, a question is innovation and creativity a KPI included in your dashboard? please. So to me, the question is getting at how do you measure innovation? Should it be a part of it? Um, what gets included in your dashboard will be relative to your strategy itself. So if innovation is a key part of your strategy, then of course you would try to come up with a meaningful way to measure that strategy. So I would expect an organization that's cranking out new products and thinking of innovation management as like a whole thing for them. It's a focus area for them, and they would have a whole series of measures having to do that track whether you're managing innovation well or not. Whereas a lot of our clients, innovation is more of a cultural element. There might be something related to innovation. So it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish and how you think about your strategy, how you think about innovation within the context of your strategy. Is there a difference between balanced scorecard and management by objectives? If yes, can both work together with another? Yes. I mean, we to me, KPIs, balanced scorecard, management by objectives, OKR, all of these are different frameworks that are roughly doing the same thing. You're using, first of all of them have objectives. I mean, objectives should be the same no matter which framework you're using. It's a common term used to help capture the activity, whatever we're trying to accomplish. And then the concept of measurement, we're going to measure our success, is the same from framework to framework. And so you're speaking the same language, just using a slightly different version of the truth. So what we try to do is minimize the confusion by, going with one framework or the other, but trying to use the same principles that all of them sort of rely on. Articulating what success looks like, working towards a common goal, and so forth, so forth. Question, specific use case for nonprofit organizations, especially with regards to capacity building. Don, I assume you've worked with some nonprofits over the years, right?
Oh yeah, many different nonprofits, educational institutions. The good thing about our system is that it's sort of a blank space for people to create what they need to get the information that they want, right? And so you saw the hierarchy that existed here. This is not something that's prescribed, right? So, you can build this to be whatever you need it to be. Those organizations, these different departments can be exactly what are existing in your organization. You can name them whatever you want. The same thing happens with the KPI metrics or the objectives, right? We've provided no prescription for what you have to put into the system. It's all up to you in terms of how you want to design it.
Right. Very good. Yeah, same on our side. We work with nonprofits, governments, for profit. It really doesn't matter. That the point is that you're trying to articulate what you're trying to accomplish and measure your progress. We use the same, we update and modify whatever framework we're using to make sure it matches the language of the client.
And on our website, we provide some KPI metrics for different types of verticals. And so, if there's something that that person is looking for, it may be there at spiderstrategies.com.
Mhm. Okay. Question, what should you do when the ideal KPI is too complex or costly to measure? Uh, usually when that happens, we're talking about trying to find a proxy. If let's just say in the abstract, let's say a thermometer costs $1 million, and that's really important for you. It's really important for your strategy. You don't want to spend $1 million. Maybe I can count the number of people who are wearing a coat in the building today. So maybe it's not a perfect measure. So, but depending on what decisions you're kind of trying to make, it might be enough. It might suffice. It might be enough information. If I need to know a specific temperature level for some scientific reason, so it's rocket science. You probably got to spend the $1 million for the thermometer. But for a lot of management decisions, you can get by with a proxy that is pretty, that is a useful indicator rather than the more expensive or perfect measure. Okay, another question. Many projects rely on cross-functional collaboration within teams and across teams. How to account for shared KPIs within teams and across teams while maintaining accountability. Boy, this is a common problem. Almost every time we're working with an organization at the strategy level, we're talking about objectives that are cross-functional. Okay, so there's not going to be, one person who has absolute control over everything having to do with that objective. They have to be able to work as a team to collaborate to make that happen. So we do recommend assigning an owner to the objective. So there's one person that we go to that can speak to the performance, speak to the initiative, to the objective, and any related initiatives. Um, but ultimately, we're trying to create a culture where performance doesn't rely on one supervisor acting as a task driver to make sure that their employees are doing everything, and punishing people. We want to be holding performance review meetings where team members contribute and they collaborate. We're trying to get away from the old command and control structure where I have a single boss, and we're trying to evolve toward to where we're all working as a team. And more companies that I'm working with anyway, they have to get to that point where everybody is on a lot of different teams, and you have to contribute to the various teams, and you're thinking about what you're trying to accomplish in a big picture sense rather than those tasks that have been assigned to me. We're almost out of time. Don, how can the system be customized to reflect my specific country data where I have my operations across my own country?
Yes, absolutely. And you can utilize whatever currency is necessary as well. So again, because it is a blank space, you have the ability to use the language that you need to for those particular metrics. And then if you need to use a particular currency, you can use that as well.
Mhm.
It's
I
already in there.
noticed re yeah, I noticed recently that the system for Arabic has been drastically improved where it reads right to left. The trend lines go from right to left. It's
Yep.
everything, is been adapted for that culture. So I assume that just about any other language in the world is
Yeah,
adaptable.
the system itself is translated into Spanish and French and Arabic, but then, again, with the blankness of the KPIs, you can sort of type in whatever you need to.
Yeah. Right.
I saw one of the questions was around reports. So reports can sort of be created to your liking, right? You can have something as simple as this. You can make sure it looks like a simple like Excel file. You can have it be where it's more of like a separated by employee, or whether it is color coded. So the reports themselves, they could be very simplistic or they can be a little bit more dynamic. And you can add the notes in there. So if there's commentary around specific KPI, which can be added on the scorecard page, right? So if someone wants to add notes here, you can utilize those notes on the report, so they'll show up, and they would be time specific. So the notes would show up for the time period that you're looking at the report.
Very good. All right. Well, it looks like we're out of time. Thank you all so much for attending. If we didn't get to your question, please just reply to the email that comes to you. Send your question in, and they'll send it to us, and we might even set up a call if you want to discuss a challenge you're facing. Don, thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it. It's been a good time.
Have a good time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all, and we will see you all next time.